Is there still a chance that AJ will step aside and allow Fury to fight Usyk for undisputed? I'm sure most of you are going to be screaming, no, there's no chance, it's never going to happen. And you may well be right. But the reason I asked this question is because in this interview right here, Bob Arum is still talking about the scenario where AJ steps aside and allows Fury to fight Usyk. Now, even Eddie Hearn is talking about the fact that the other side want that. But again, he keeps on reiterating that AJ has an ironclad rematch clause in the original contract with Usyk. And indeed, Bob Arum acknowledges that too. He says it's up to AJ entirely whether he decides to step aside or not. But again, the fact that he's still mentioning this suggests that he thinks there's some chance that that could happen. Have they seen something in AJ? Is it because he's flying around and visiting all these different trainers and they're thinking, you know what? This guy is unsure of himself. This guy isn't as keen for the rematch as his promoter is making out that he is. Is that what Bob Arum and Tyson Fury are seeing? Or maybe it's just a case of them thinking that they can come up with the type of number, the step aside fee that AJ would accept. Who knows? But as you guys who have been watching my videos over the past few weeks will know, I would prefer that scenario. I would rather AJ step aside and allow Fury Usyk because I want to see something different. All of these rematches just hold up the division. And I understand in voluntary defenses, you're going to have rematch clauses, but in mandatory defenses, I don't like having rematch clauses all the time. And I've seen some people defend this and say there's nothing wrong with having mandatories, signing rematch clauses. Well, I'm talking from the perspective of a fan, and I don't want to see guys get bogged down with rematching people all the time. With mandatories, traditionally, there was no rematch clauses. So I'm looking at the sanctioning bodies, and I'm saying, you guys need to stop this. For the sake of the fans, we don't want to see the same people fight over and over and over again and every single fight have a rematch clause. The beauty of mandatories used to be that the mandatory challenger can beat the champion and then sail off into the sunset afterwards, and the champion doesn't necessarily go back to the bottom of the pile, but they just become a regular contender again. I like that. I don't want to say chaotic, but it seemed like a more fair system. Now the champion, in order to actually, walk away with his belt, you got to beat him twice. There's something wrong about that to me, or at least something that isn't conducive to entertaining the fans the way that we want to be entertained, which is to see the champions fight all the different contenders, not get bogged down fighting one contender, or let's say that contender becomes the champion, not get bogged down fighting the former champion again. You see it? So I would prefer for AJ to step aside. And not only for that reason, I also think that AJ needs to change his training setup, needs to change his mindset. And he hasn't yet reached this ceiling, in my opinion. I don't think Rob McCracken is the guy to take him to that ceiling. I think he's going to need other people to do that, or another person. So it's two reasons why I would like AJ to step aside, not just one reason. And I've always wanted to see an undisputed champion in every division, but with a heavyweight division in particular, there's been this ambiguity, this argument about who's the best in the division for all these years. We haven't had an undisputed champion since Lennox Lewis. We haven't had a 4-belt champion in the heavyweight division ever. So that is something that once it's been, completed, once that has been done, we can move forward without any talk of, oh, this one's the lineal and this one's the consensus and, all that kind of stuff. We can put all that to bed once we have an undisputed champion, because the undisputed champion will be undisputed in terms of has all the belts. He'll also be lineal. So from that point on, we will know who the man is. Because right now, there hasn't been a consensus. Well, let me not even say consensus. There hasn't been an undisputed the man since Lennox Lewis. Because when the Klitschko's were fighting, well, both of them had belts. They weren't going to fight each other because they're brothers. Then there was a period where Klitschko was seen as the man, right, by most of us, but you still had Deontay Wilder, right? You had Berman Stavern briefly. You had Deontay Wilder. Now, I've long said that Deontay Wilder ducked the Klitschko fight. He openly, or his manager Shelley Finkel openly said that Wilder wasn't ready for that. But nonetheless, there's always been a pocket of people out there who are Deontay Wilder fans that would have been saying, no, Wilder's the man. He would beat Klitschko and so on, right? Once you have an undisputed champion, it gets rid of all that. And of course, in more recent times, we've had AJ having the majority of the belts, Deontay Wilder having one, and Tyson Fury having this, fictitious lineal title. And there you go, it's split. Some people thinking for the longest time that Wilder was the best. Other people saying that AJ was the best. Other people say, no, Fury's the lineal. He's the best. You see it. Undisputed gets rid of all that confusion, gets rid of all that conjecture, and we can start from a clean slate from that moment on. Whoever wins that undisputed fight, that's the man. And going forward, if you want to be the man, you have to beat whoever that is. You see it. And I want to get to that position as soon as possible. It's not about hating AJ or hating this one or hating that. It's not about that. It's about clarity for the heavyweight division. And I want to achieve clarity as soon as possible. And therefore, I want AJ to step aside and allow this Fury-Usyk undisputed fight to take place first. Now, I can understand why Eddie Hearn wouldn't want that to happen, right? The financial interest there for Eddie Hearn. I can understand why, to some degree, AJ wouldn't want that to happen because of his pride and all this lot. But pride comes before a fall. You need to be careful about pride. Yeah? You need to be strategic about what you're doing. Of course, you need pride in order to succeed in a sport like boxing, but again, you have to be cognizant of not allowing your pride to supersede your intellect. So that could be what AJ's doing right now, allowing his pride to supersede his intellect. I think he needs a lot of work. I think that he can, if he's taught the right way and if he has the right mindset, beat Alexander Usyk. I genuinely do. But I don't know whether he can get himself technically and mentally in the right space to do that within the next, 5 months now? When they're talking about the AJ Usyk rematch? It is what it is. And even if he was to get back those belts from Usyk in the rematch next, do we really believe that AJ is going to have addressed all the issues that he needs to address, in my view, in order to, be the best version of himself that he can be, and therefore avoid other potential losses? Look, you're going to lose. Most fighters are going to lose regardless. If they reach their potential or not, they're still going to lose at some point. I accept that. But I also believe that there are losses that fighters could avoid, certain losses they could avoid, if they go with the right trainers and learn the right things first time around. But fighters tend to be, caught up in loyalty and all this kind of stuff with trainers, and therefore they won't fire a trainer and hire somebody else until it's too late. I've spoken ad nauseum about Lennox Lewis when he was with Pepe Correa. Imagine if he hadn't been with Pepe Correa. Imagine if he'd hired Manny Stewart from the very beginning. Might have been a very different career, might have been a much better career, and it was a great career as it was, right? Anyway, those are my thoughts on what Bob Arum said here about AJ stepping aside. It's up to him. Hopefully, is what I'm hoping, they can offer him the right kind of money. They can convince him somehow, and we see the undisputed fight sooner rather than later. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be some psychotic weirdos saying, you're an AJ hater. There's always these weirdos, man. They just don't understand objectivity, and they don't understand that I'm a boxing fan first and foremost. I want to see the best fights, and in this instance, for the past however many years, I've been constantly banging on about undisputed. I want undisputed first. That's the priority. The priority is not AJ for me. The priority is not Fury or Usyk. The priority is let's get an undisputed champion. That's the priority. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments.